Cool, so that's working, and that was honestly pretty easy to implement. So the next thing that we're going to do is implement our ability to remove friends. Now this one is actually going to require us to add a button for this, since currently there's no way to actually call this function inside our app. But first we'll just worry about calling this function. What we're going to do is change this to make a request to the correct endpoint. So we'll say const response equals await axios.delete, and we're going to send this to /friends/friend ID, which we're getting from the arguments here. And we also need to convert this to an async function since we're using await. And once we get the response back, we just need to set our friends to the friends array that we got back in the response. So we'll say set friends response.data. All right, so that's pretty easy to do. The one thing we need to do now is actually add a place in the app where this function will be called. Okay, so what we're going to do is go into our friend detail page. So let's go into pages here, friend detail page, and we're going to add it in here. So our friend detail page is going to have an extra action in addition to removing from favorites, editing info. We're also going to add an action for deleting the friend. Okay, so we'll say action name delete friend. And for the handler for that, we'll want to call the function that we're getting from our friends provider. So we need to go up here and get that from the context. So we'll say toggle favorite and remove friend. And we're going to make this action handler here call that remove friend function with the friend ID. So we'll say remove friend, and the friend ID, we're getting that from the URL parameters on this page. If you recall, right, we're getting that up here with the use params hook. So we can just say remove friends, or remove friend rather, friend ID, and that should allow us to call that function. So let's go back to our page and see if that works. Oh, and we're also going to want to actually send the user back to the home page after we delete that friend, because otherwise it will display a message saying that that friend was not found. Okay, so we'll say remove friend, and since that's asynchronous, we're going to want to say await and add an async to this function here. And after that happens, we're going to say history.push and send them back to the home page. Okay, since there's no longer a friend to look at on the friend detail page. So let's go back here now. We're going to try deleting, I guess we'll delete Carl. Sorry, Carl. And let's click on this delete friend button now. And oops, it looks like remove friend is not a function, so we must not be providing that correctly. No, it looks like we're passing it here. Oh, our problem is that we're getting it from the favorites context, and it's from the friends context. So we actually need to add our friends context back to this component by saying const friends context, const remove friend equals use context friends context. And now that should work. So again, Carl is on the chopping block. Goodbye, Carl. Let's click delete friend. And it looks like we're getting an error. So let's try that again. What we're going to do here is go to one of our other friends detail pages. So we'll go to friends 1, 2, 3, and let's keep our inspector window open so that we can see what's going on here in the network. Okay, and we're going to click on delete friend here, and what we'll see, let's take a look at what we're getting back from this. All right, and it looks like we're getting back the correct response, so it must be something else. I think I know what it is now. So it turns out that when we call this, let's go to our friend detail page. When we call remove friend, if you recall how our friends page works, let's go back to that. Our friends page actually takes the favorites and maps them to a corresponding friend from our friends array. So what we're forgetting here in our friend detail page, we need to also remove the corresponding ID from that friend if they're in our favorites, okay? So what we need to do is we need to actually add a similar remove favorites function to our favorites provider, which will specifically remove that from the array. So basically what we're going to do is just add another function here called remove favorite. And for this, we'll say async friend ID. We're going to just steal this logic from where we remove our favorite up here. So we'll put that inside there and add remove favorite here, okay, which we'll have to put above it. So we'll say friend ID. Put this underneath here. And what we're going to need to do now is just call this remove favorite function when we remove the friend inside our friend detail page. So we're going to need to add that to our provider here. So we'll need to say toggle favorite and remove favorite. And inside here now, we're going to need to import remove favorite from our favorites context. So we'll say remove favorite. And down here, before we even remove the friend, we'll say remove favorite. So we'll say await remove favorite friend ID. Okay, so let's see if this works now. We're going to need to restart our server, unfortunately, to make that work since the data is messed up. So let's restart this and go back and take a look. We're going to refresh our page and see if this works now. So let's try deleting this friend. Sure enough, that works. Let's try it if our friend is a favorite. So we'll add Eva Hayes to our favorites. Click on delete friend, and sure enough, that works as well. So we had to do a little bit of troubleshooting there to get that to work, but we figured it out. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.